Good evening, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to the latest online event here at the Wine Society. My name is Gil. I'm one of the events managers here at the Society, and I'm joined by my colleague and buyer for the Rhône Valley, Fiona Hayes. Fiona, great timing putting the camera on just then. How are you?
Hey. Hi, I'm good. I feel like we've seen a lot of each other this week.
It has a lot of Rhône this week, but that is no bad thing in my in my books.
Absolutely
Um,
not.
but that is very much the topic of tonight's event. We are here to talk about the brand new, hot off the press Rhône En Primeur. I've got the booklet just here. So I think this came out on Tuesday. Is that right?
It did. It went live
Live
Tuesday. I actually
Tuesday.
only got my copy this morning, so I don't know. Hopefully, other people have received theirs in the post.
Absolutely, but yeah. So we were really keen to talk about what is actually a really beautiful vintage in 24, and there are a lot of wines. I think we were talking just off air, and there's something like 200 wines or something. I think you were saying.
Yes, with print and online. Yeah,
Mm.
around that.
So obviously, over the next hour and 15 minutes, we're not planning on talking about each and every one of those wines. That would be an impossibility, I think, as a feat to try and do in an hour. But the hope of this evening is just to, yeah, shed a bit of light about what the on-premise system is, how it works, what this vintage particularly was like in the Rhone, both north south. Maybe look at some individual appellations, producers, wine styles as well. Members, as always, we'd love to get your feedback, your interaction throughout the course of this session. So, joining us here, as some of you already are doing, please do pop that chat feature open. Let us know where you're joining us from. Maybe you've got a glass of wine in hand, or maybe the bottle is there ready to open. Do not wait for any invitation from us. Crack that bottle open now, pour a glass. Um, whilst most of what Fiona and I will be discussing are wines yet to be bottled, yet to be shipped to the UK, we have selected one white and one red wine from the 24 vintage that are already bottled, already available, and perhaps some of you have purchased one or both of those to join with us. We'll be tasting those throughout the course of the evening, but again, if you have got them, don't wait for us to talk about them. Get that open and enjoy it, and tell us what you think. If you have any questions, then please do pop that into the Q&A feature here on Zoom. That way, it just stays very much front and center for us both, and I will do my best to monitor that and to ask questions throughout the course of the evening as we go. Fiona, have I missed anything there? I don't think so.
No, I think that's great. Just saw somebody cracking open the pâté and Oliver's like, oh yes,
Oh, nice.
hot
And I can
snacks.
see it. Crèche Blanc being opened as well.
Yeah, poor
Brilliant.
planning on my part there. Okay, so I guess for those that aren't aware, on Premier is buying wine before it's bottled, essentially. So as a buyer, I've gone to the region, tasted the wines from barrel or tank, making assessment, and we're releasing them early for you to buy before the wine's bottled. So early access to the wine. The advantage of that is availability, especially for some of the smaller production wines. If you don't put your hands up to buy them early, likelihood is they're probably not going to be on the market later on. Um, and yeah, it's also you get access to the wines that you want to buy. That we might not list all of the wines that we're offering on Premier. I think that would be quite a tough feat to do with over 200 wines as well. So it means that those wines can be bought if you like them and put in your cellar. And also there's often a price advantage of doing it. We get a keener price buying early, but also you're buying these wines in bond, so you're not paying duty and VAT on those wines until the wines are ready to drink. So there's the
Wow.
advantage there.
Brilliant. And as I sort of alluded to, I suppose there for me personally, I think this is a fantastic vintage. We'll obviously discuss in more detail the weather and any particular kind of standout areas, appellations, producers. Members, if you've joined any of our previous online events, or any of my previous online events, you'll know that I'm a huge fan of Rhône, certainly of Syrah. So this is absolutely my bread and butter. And I need to, whittle down. I've got many a suggestion of my own within this selection of wines. So there may well be some questions from me, Fiona. I hope that's all right, as well as from the members on a few of these. But
Absolutely.
um, so you tasted these 24s? When did you taste them first?
So throughout last year, so I visited in April, May, September, October, and November. So some estates and domains I visited twice, so I've tasted them quite a few times. And then obviously we tasted some on Tuesday as well.
Mhm.
Anyone that was at that En Primeur tasting, and it's it's quite can be quite hard work, I guess, because I'm visiting up to 8 producers a day. Some producers have over 30 wines within their range. So you get a feel of the region and the vintage quite early on.
Mhm.
And it was actually quite interesting. The early autumn trips that I did, I was visiting during harvest. So they were harvesting the 25 vintage grapes, and there were about three major sort of storms, especially in the south, happening. So there was a lot of stressed and tired winemakers who were trying to get those grapes in before mildew problems were occurring. So yeah, I guess challenging for them to talk about the 24 whilst also during the 25
Yeah.
harvest. So
More than one eye on what's currently going, but talking
yeah,
about their other. I mean, there's many plates, I suppose, isn't it, for the producers and for yourself. But
yeah, absolutely.
you mentioned about this the sort of storms coming, but I suppose when we talk about a vintage wine, and in this case 24, the sort of the vintage for each vine starts really winter, so that kind of latter stages 23 into 4 is where a lot of things can start. Or
Yeah,
um,
absolutely. So for 24, so winter 23,
mm,
it was quite mild. And that carried on into January, February, which meant that flowering happened quite early in 24, which is not necessarily a bad thing, but it means that you're at risk of changing weather patterns. So sometimes frost can be an issue. For 24, it was a lot of rain and cool weather. So it meant that flowering was more challenging. You know, there was mildew pressure, and therefore growers had to be in the vineyard to deal with those issues, and stop disease spreading on the vine. Um, then it proved particularly challenging because that rain continued, and those cool temperatures. Thankfully, summer, especially August, the sunshine came, the warm temperatures came, but not too. There weren't any real heat spikes and sustained heat spikes. So for a lot of the vintages, like 23, the last 2 weeks of August, there was a heat wave. 22 was very dry throughout the growing season, and summer was very hot, which meant that the vines shut down. Can have a lot of sort of those dried fruit flavors coming through,
mm,
if the wine growers weren't paying too much attention. So um, yeah, it was challenging, but then August sort of saved the vintage almost. And then in September, again, the rains came back. So it meant that, yeah, the wine growers needed to be in the vineyard a lot. And for instance, in May, when there was a lot of rain, for those that know, France pretty much shuts down in May. They have quite a few bank holidays, especially if the bank holiday is on a Thursday. They take the Friday off. They call it the pont, the bridge. So they take Thursday, Friday, Saturday, Sunday off. So 4 days not being in the vineyard when it's raining is
mm,
disastrous. So smaller growers, family estates, sort of fared better because they were agile enough to react to those sort of changing weather patterns.
yeah,
Obviously, as well, steeper vineyards fared better, when the rain just sort of came off, rather than sort of the vines sort of sitting in sort of puddles of water. Um, and yes, I think that sort of explains the sort of the weather conditions. How did that impact the resulting wine? I think you'll find that the 24s are slightly lower alcohol than the 23s, higher acid, more, I guess, floral, perfumed, and the sort of cooler sort of flavor profiles that you'd find in a less warm vintage. You've had 23, 22, 20, 29, 2019, all quite warm vintages, and 18 as well. So you had a succession of really warm vintages. 21 was very cool, lot of rain. It wasn't as warm in the summer as 24. So I personally think it's a much better vintage 24 than 21 as a result of that. There are some lovely 21s, especially the really sort of top growers. You'd be expecting them to make amazing wines because of the low yields, attention to detail, etc. But I think overall the 2024s are a sort of warmer expression compared to the 21.
Sure, but cooler then, as you said, the 22,
Cooler
23
than
is
22,
repeated. Yeah.
23, 20.
Yeah, it's definitely got, as you alluded to, the tasting on Tuesday, where we got to taste a few of the 24s. They are very, it's a very fresh, a very aromatic, a really vibrant vintage. I thought all the wines, both white and red wines, even at that early stage of their life, were really um, very pleasing to drink. Really approachable. Even those reds that were typically in warmer vintages take quite a while to kind of unwound and be approachable. They were instantly a pleasure in the glass.
Yeah, I think they're really accessible early on. And when I tasted the 23s, I thought they were really charming, juicy, and also quite easy to taste when I was tasting through. But as sort of time went on, they became sort of more closed, I guess. Whereas the 24s I found open all the way through,
Yeah.
which is really nice. And also I found that I can really pick up the different nuances of the different terroirs, the different vineyard sites. And I was speaking to quite a number of growers about that, and they were saying in cooler vintages that comes through a lot more. And also the grape character. So from the northern Rhône, that pepperiness really comes through, the violets and the florals, and that graphite character, which is lovely. So yeah, real great terroir and grape expression. So for the 24s.
And you mentioned, just quick back to the weather very briefly. You mentioned obviously a very wet sort of spring through almost kind of June, July, August had that bit of warmth and dried out the vineyard
Yeah.
before then the rains of September. So there's a question here that we've got in. How can the growers react to those heavy rains? I suppose would there be
So
uh,
you'd be
reducing
going
those yields?
So you'd be going into the vineyard and you want to aerate the canopy.
Mm.
So basically make sure you're de-leafing, making sure that enough air, so you're using that Mistral wind, which is very typical of the Rhône Valley. It's really important when you get those rains, you want the wind to come through to dry out the vine. So if you're eliminating a lot of the leaf growth, and the danger of that is then if it becomes really sunny, the grapes aren't protected from the sun. So you can have, so you have to be really sort of strategic and quite intelligent about it. No, so not take all the leaves out, for instance. You want to leave some greenery on there, but you just want to make sure that you're not encouraging disease pressure. So that mildew, because once you get mildew, it's very hard. It moves quite quickly on the leaves, on the grapes, which causes rot, and then which isn't great to have. And then obviously those grapes that have mildew and rot, you just want to be getting rid of them at the sorting table. Ideally, you're not picking them, but if it does come through to the sorting table, you want to get rid of them because they'll just cause bad aromas in the wine.
Yeah. So again, it's that sort of vintage then where very much quality, sure sort of
Yeah,
growers is key
yeah,
to follow those producers who were in that vineyard, as you say, day in, day out.
yeah, and you'd be
Really,
spraying as well.
yeah. Mm. So I can see on the chat a number of people have got the first white that we're looking at, or the white wine rather, that we've picked to taste, the
Mhm.
Gigal Blanc, which I'll show here. So it is a 2024 vintage, and it seems to be going down rather nicely from the comments I'm seeing here. But I thought actually maybe at this point we could talk a little bit about this wine, about the producer as well, perhaps a little bit about Guigel, who might, for many, be more famous for their red wines, perhaps than for their white wines, but a great opportunity to talk about their whites. And then maybe as a northern Rhone sort of grower, we could maybe then look a little bit more in depth at the northern Rhone before then moving on to the south.
Okay.
So,
Yeah. Seguiga, I think, are probably one of the most recognised producers from the Rhone. They actually relatively young, really. It's set up in 1946. And they've grown dramatically during that time. It's now run and owned by Philippe Guigal. They do have some really top vineyard sites within the Northern Rhone. And over the years have acquired various estates like Chateau d'Ampuy, Domaine de Nalis, which is now Chateau de Nalis, and more recently Chateau de Carrière in Lirac. And what they are known for is buying a lot of grapes as well. So they're in a ghost setup. And very long-standing relationships with vineyard growers, so they get access to a lot of good grapes, and therefore I think they're one of the producers that I would recommend to family and friends as a go-to. They're consistently great and offer great value for money.
yeah. There's a note just here. The Guigel is surprisingly drinkable for such a young wine. I think that, I suppose, speaks to the vintage and what we were saying about 24, but also the
Yes.
quality of Guigel and their winemaking.
Yeah, I guess this is a Côte de Rhône. So it's and it's with its price point, it's made to be drunk earlier, I guess, and some of the whites in our EP offer. It's mainly made up of Viognier, but it also has Roussanne, Marsanne, Claret, and Grenache Blanc. So quite a lot of the grapes are coming from the south as well. A warmer Mediterranean climate, so juicier profile.
Hmm.
But yes, I think it is tasting really well.
Yeah, yeah. It's so we've got delicious, really quite Viognier-ish, which is a great word that I'm happy for us to sort of coin that new word Viognier-ish. But it's got, yeah, that kind of lovely yellow that sort of stone fruit character
Yeah, I
of
guess some
Viognier.
people find Viognier a bit intense. It's very aromatic as a grape variety. So the Roussanne, Marsanne, and Claret sort of
Mm.
bring that back a bit, so it's not too in your face for those people that are not, I guess, Condria lovers, which can be a bit overpowering, I guess, if you don't like that style.
And then I think that the palate on the back palate is really broad. It's a very open, very expressive, very sort of mouth coating, which might be sort of maybe some of that Grenache Blanc playing a role there as well. Because you said there's some in there
Yes, there is.
like
Yeah.
around it. But yeah, a complex, very, very good wine. You mentioned Condrieu, obviously Guigal's very well known. I know there's one or two, well, there's more than one or two exquisite Viogniers from the Northern Rhone within the offer. But in white wines, generally, do you find that across all the appellations, both North and South, white wines in 24 really did stand out?
Yeah, I think for me, in 24, the whites are just outstanding. They've really benefited from that sort of cooler profile and have produced really sort of linear, precise,
Mm.
energetic wines. The acidity profile is really sort of zippy, I guess, zesty, and I think some of these show real great potential in aging as well. So you don't have to worry about putting it in your cellar. It has the structure there, I think, but also delicious in youth as well. So yeah, I think North and South, the whites have really, really done well. Yeah, really quite charming, in fact.
Now, if we just stay within Côte de Rhône as a sort of a sort of label and as an appellation, but the Northern Rhone's versions, of course, I think it's fair to say most Côte de Rhône labeled wines will be from grapes grown in the south. But I did notice, and we've got a question here that within the offer, there are a handful of I think Côte de Rhône red in Northern Rhone appellations, close to or very nearby the likes of Cornas and Coruti. And there's a question here from a member just to see if we can maybe talk a little bit of detail about those wines and what makes them tick.
Absolutely. I think for me, the Rhône offers such great value still compared to Bordeaux and Burgundy, and I to some extent Barolo. I think that even within that value, there's more value that can be found, and a way to achieve that is vineyards that are just on the periphery of the appellation, so don't quite count as a Côte Rôtie or an Hermitage, for instance. And then you can, especially if you then find those that are produced by a top grower with great vineyard sites, you can get great value. So I guess one of the examples, the first wine I think on the offer, the Côte de Rhône Brezem, which is northernmost, most southern delimitation. So again, it has a lot of the sort of southern Rhone. It's sort of an in between. It has the sort of the character and expression of the south, but it's very much from the north with the
Yeah,
Syrah. That's sort of 62 per six, which is pretty good value.
yeah,
And then in Cornas, there's the Le Moulin from a great producer, Damien Serret. And that tends to be quite a lot of younger vine fruit going into that, which he doesn't want to put into his Cornas. Yeah, £55 per six. And then you have Rostang's Colin Rodanienne, for instance, baby Côte Rôtie, I've described it. Younger vines, but also just outside of the appellation. Were there any more that you were thinking of?
no, no, no. And I think what you said there about, sort of snuffling out these incredible wines and great value to be had. The producers you're mentioning there are the absolute, cream of the crop. So wines from them, whether they be in those sort of the more famous appellation or sitting just outside, the quality and the attention to detail is going to be there for each and every one of their wines. And they're wonderful, wonderful
Yeah.
expression. I think those are areas that I suppose as consumers of are kind of getting a little bit more familiar with, and they're great wines to buy and maybe to enjoy those in the early term while we're waiting for some of our other wines
Yeah,
to
I would
mature.
really, yeah, I would really recommend for those who have got the EP to just read some of the tasting notes, and there's clues in there where there's value sort of to be had, and those people that are doing things differently, and yeah, you sort of start to understand like the nuances of yeah, there might be 10 crows, for instance, but they all have their different expression, and for those not wanting to sort of spend maybe £90 per six, you can still get value at the other side of the range, for sure.
Yeah, yeah. I'm just turning this over here just to get myself ready for a question that's coming up. This is my booklet. But we've got a question on Ventoux that's come through. And obviously the red wine, well, not obviously, but the red wine that we've selected to kind of taste a little bit this evening is from the Ventoux appellation.
Yeah.
Um, so we're in the south, we're in southern Rhone. The question is, I'm just make sure I get the question right before I so let me bring it up here. What level of appellation sort of within the hierarchy? Because Ventoux is quite a new or newish appellation. So
Yeah,
for you, sort of where are we seeing it in its journey, I suppose, before then we talk more broadly about the Southern Rhone.
there's quite a few what I call sort of like border appellations that are really sort of starting to become rising stars, I guess. And they're for various reasons. I think for the Ventoux, it's slightly north of Luberon, borders Chateauneuf and Gigondas. Um, but what makes it really special is altitude. So you've got Mont Ventoux there. It's close to the Dentelle de Montmirail, and you're getting that freshness that maybe some of these southern appellations don't have, which is really helping to lower the alcohol, but also give real like freshness as well. which I think is only a good thing, bearing in mind climate change and the south, and some of the grape varieties planted in the south, like Grenache, quickly the alcohol rises quite easily. Um, wines.
So I thought I'd bring a map
Oh
up
yeah.
as we were talking specifically, obviously about Ventoux, but
Oh, I was right, just
um,
north of Luberon. Thanks.
not to check, but also quite rightly a couple of messages, a couple of comments there about let's get some maps up. So I do have them. Apologies for not bringing the Northern Rhône one up. We can go back. We can talk more again about the Rhône in the north. That's
Yeah.
Syrah territory. That's my favourite. So we can go back to that. But yeah, here's the map of Southern Rhône. So Ventoux. Hopefully you can see my cursor there as Fiona was describing. But you've got these famous area of Châteauneuf-du-Pape with Gigondas, which I think personally really performed beautifully in 24. I think that the few bottles of Gigondas that I've had the pleasure of trying from the vintage were really, really outstanding. As
Yeah,
was
I
actually one
think.
sober a bit further to the north. Sorry.
Yeah, sorry, I interrupted you there. Yeah, Gigondas and Vaccaras didn't get the rains, the late sort of rains as well that were happening in September compared to the other regions. So yeah, you do get. They definitely didn't have to worry about sort of the green sort of
Mm.
tannin profile or anything, or any big mildew pressure issues. And just on that map, I was explaining these sort of like border areas. Costier de Nîmes is one of them as well. I think that's an area to watch. I think Ventoux is probably a bit more advanced in terms of quality and advancement in what they're doing. But yeah, Costier de Nîmes is also definitely one to watch.
Okay, perfect. So I was trying to get the there we go. I was trying to get the map back up, but it froze momentarily for me. Can you
Okay,
see
yeah.
that? Does it come
So
up?
yeah,
It's
Costier de Nîmes there, just below
sorry, there we
Rack
are.
and Tavel. Um,
Yes.
and
Tavel
also
actually.
within that, you've got Lirac and Tavel. Lirac, I definitely think is offering such good value, and we had Chateau de Carrier there this week on Tuesday. Tasting those, like, yeah, not only can you drink them a bit earlier than maybe Chateauneuf to Pap, in terms of the price, you're getting so much for your money there. Because often these sort of bigger, more well-known appellations do command a premium, whereas if you just go like a little bit outside, you're getting similar terroir, similar sort of grape varieties, etc. Yeah, you just have to look a little bit off the beaten track, and you can often get a lot of good value wines as a result.
Mhm. And so when we talked about the Northern Rhone, obviously for red wines at least, we're talking Syrah. We mentioned about how in 24 they've kind of retained that lovely black pepper and aromatic, that sort of violets and those beautiful floral elements to a cool climate Syrah.
Mm-hmm.
Southern Rhone, not only are we typically talking for red wines and for white, but blends, but
Yeah.
predominantly Grenache Noir within the reds. A great variety, I think, that can sometimes kind of accumulate sugars very quickly and get very high alcohols. But in this vintage, again, nice sort of moderate alcohols. They're fresher, more of that lovely sort of succulent red fruit profile. Oh, I've lost your sound there for a moment. Sorry, Fiona. It doesn't seem like you're muted, but I've lost your sound. Members, do let me know if you can still hear. Maybe it's all on my end.
Can you hear me now?
Ah, I've got you. Yes, you're
Okay.
back.
So I was saying, yes, 24 is cooler, but we are still talking about quite a warm area. So you are still getting quite elevated alcohols. So compared to certain regions. So yes,
Mhm.
it is slightly reduced, but they're still full-bodied wines
Yeah,
ultimately.
yeah.
But yes, and you just sort of have to look elsewhere if you're wanting a slightly different style. So maybe producers that pick slightly earlier, or regions like the Ventoux, where you've got the altitude there, and that is on your side. Yes, you said it was all about blends. The wine that we've got this evening is a Grenache Syrah blend. Syrah is widely planted, although on its own doesn't really fare that well in the Southern Rhone. But in Ventoux, it's Southern Rhone's most coolest appellation, so it works really well there. Um,
No. Right. Should we taste it? I think we should
yeah.
taste this one. We've skirted around tasting it for long enough. So this is the red. I'll bring a slide up as well. Of, as you say, that blend of Grenache and Syrah from Ventoux. Let me bring the slide up because it's bursting with beautiful ripe fruit characters. It's really smooth, very balanced. The acidity is lovely on there. I think it's got a lovely character to it, and a great deal of sort of length as well. I'm still, a good few seconds after tasting that wine, still very much easily identifiable fruit profile. So here's the note. So to your point, yes, it's got that freshness, but we're at 14 and a half. We are full-bodied wine, but there's a real elegance and balance and structure there. Well, what can you tell us about the wine, about the producer?
So the producer is really sort of innovative, which I think tells they've just changed their labels and everything. So they're trying to appeal to, I guess, younger consumers to try and get them more engaged. And this is quite a sort of, I guess, entry level red from the region. So it's
Mhm.
not very complex in the sense that it's very fruit driven and doesn't see any oak, just stainless steel and yeah, just a real sort of juicy, accessible style of Southern Rhone.
And so this particular producer, am I right? Well, they produce more than the one wine, of course. They've got white wines as well as red, but um, we're currently listing another of their reds as well. I don't know if it's from the 24 vintage, but how's that differ to this one, I suppose, if
Yeah,
members are
different
looking at
quality
that?
levels, different vineyards. So this is a blend, younger vines,
Mhm.
bigger volume, available. I think they might actually do this wine in bag in box from memory. And yeah, just different vineyard sites for the higher quality wines there.
Okay. I'm
But
just
it's a
looking through.
beautiful area for anybody who's never visited. I would really recommend. Uh, it's lots of garrigue, like the mountain, Mont Ventoux, and the other hills around. If you like cycling, it's a cyclist dream, I think, around there.
Yeah, I was going to say that's what I've heard at least. I don't know if I'll be cycling up mountains, but I like the sound of it.
Yeah, I think you've got to be pretty hardcore to do
Yeah,
Mont Ventoux, but
yeah.
there's other
So smaller ones around.
yes around Baume
Yeah,
du Venise as well. Yeah,
yeah.
beautiful. Um,
I'm just having a quick look at some because we've had a few questions come through. A few. Let me see here. So we've got Vincent Paris Granite 30, I think, as we're showing. Am I right there? A member is saying um, that we're showing the 30, and have we other times maybe showed the 60?
yes, we
Obviously,
have. Yeah. Um,
how
so
do those two? Well, I suppose how do those two wines sort of differ in first instance? But obviously, we
they're
can't have everything.
yeah, different vineyards. So the 30 and the 60 referred to the steepness of the slopes.
Hmm.
So the 60 is a lot steeper. Vincent Paris is a great producer, really great vineyard sites. Produces like a real sort of I wouldn't say plush, but very polished style. Yeah, really good.
Okay. Yeah. So recommend. So I like that. So the 30 is down to the gradient, as you say, the steepness. Yeah, I like. Okay, we've got since we just talked about cycling and Mont Ventoux, we've had two messages come through that we tried this wine about a month ago. So the Ventoux that we've just tried with a friend who had attempted to cycle up Mont Ventoux. It doesn't say anything beyond that other than we enjoyed the wine. So I do hope they got up there, or the attempted might suggest maybe not all the way to the very top. And then others saying we cycled through the whole of the Southern Rhone region, a dream to do so. So maybe on those slightly flatter areas, maybe I'll take that on, but not quite the mountains yet. Um, Brilliant. We've also so there's another question here talking about Viognier, which of course is the dominant element of the white we tried,
Mm-hmm.
and of course a main varietal for selling Condrieu and other areas. But if you're a Viognier fan and you're looking to, taste wines or buy wines that are, you might think, might suggest a Viognier fan would like, but isn't Viognier, where would you sort of point them? What direction would you take them?
So they like Viognier, but they don't want
But
ginger.
perhaps sort of looking beyond Viognier as well, or what other wines might you recommend?
Um, well, we actually had the Côte de Rhône Blanc Légendrine from Gaillard at the tasting on
Mm,
Tuesday that I thought was tasting really well.
yes.
So that would be an option. Of the Northern Rhone whites, if you're looking for more freshness and acidity than Condria, then I would recommend Saint-Péray. It's one of the coolest appellations within the Northern Rhone. And yeah, with Marsanne and Roussanne as well, um, from from the Northern Rhone. They have a different take compared to the sort of really overtly aromatic Viognier grape variety. So yeah, look for Crozes Blanc, Saint Joseph Blanc, Saint-Péray. If it's in budget, Hermitage Blanc, which I think has really shone in 24. But yes, that's not even my budget, really, to be honest.
No, well, you've just touched on something that was going to be a next question. Dare I ask if you have any personal sort of highlights in terms of appellations that you think really in 24 shone, brighter than perhaps,
In the
or the
Northern
brightest
Rhone
one?
or North and South?
Well, across both, yeah.
Okay, so in the north, what did I think was worked really well? So Hermitage for me was the star. Um, where else? Cornas was very good.
Mhm.
Um, and I know Cote Roti suffered a lot more being just that further bit north with the mildew pressure and the cooler temperatures. But the producers, um, like Domaine Burgo,
Mm.
who only have like less than 10 hectares and could be in the vineyards, really had that sort of high attention to detail, did really well. And I was actually talking to Pierre, and he was saying how if you don't like 24 Côte Rôtie, you don't like Côte Rôtie. And when he said that, I was like, yeah, of course, in your cellar, yes. But elsewhere, when producers have lots of vineyards in various different appellations, then it becomes more complicated.
Yeah. So sorry, I thought as you're talking Northern Rhone again, I'll bring up that map that sort of shows. So yeah, Côte Rôtie, Congrès at the top there, and then
Yeah.
moving
So
further south
it's
with
quite confusing because if you're driving from where number one is, Cote Roti, to number five, Tan, that's a good 50-minute drive.
Mhm.
So you say Northern Rhone, but actually it's quite spread out.
Yeah.
Um, so yeah, the weather conditions can vary quite a lot. Um,
Mhm. And also, I suppose looking at that, one of the regions one thing that immediately jumps to me is the size of Saint Joseph in particular against the others. But it's so, I suppose, the variation of what you can get in Saint Joseph with such a large appellation.
yeah,
But that was
that's
a region that, for me personally, I really quite enjoyed quite a few of the 24s. Well, that stood out as a very good appellation for me. The wines I tried.
Yeah, so I guess San Joseph's just over 20 miles really. So it's quite extensive, lots of vineyards, lots of different sites. So you want to be going for the steeper sites, and yeah, sort of know who you're going to. So the top quality growers, the ones that you can sort of rely on, they will be producing great wines. But
Mhm.
yeah, you sort of need to know what they're doing and everything about what's happened that vintage for sure.
And then for the Southern Rhone.
Southern Rhone, Gigondas has really done well. Um, oh yeah, some beautiful Gigondas that I've been tasting recently. Um, uh,
And does Gigondas, sorry,
Lirac
does
as well.
Gigondas sit slightly higher up in altitude against maybe some of the other appellation? Have I got?
Yeah,
That
it's
right?
just on
Yeah.
the foothills of the Les Dentelles de Montmirail.
Hmm.
So yeah, you've got that slight elevation. Yeah.
Yeah.
Um,
Which can add then a little bit more freshness in some cases or in some vintages. Yeah, no, Gigondas was very. I turned the page on the booklet here and then turned it away again, but I've brought it back because at the back of the booklet we've also got, or the back of the offer, there's also these mixed cases that we've put together into because they're something that I often talk with members about. These mixed cases or introduction to the Northern Rhone is one I think, and they're wonderful opportunities. With so many wines within and so many great producers. If we're new to Rhone, if we're new to Rhone EP, it's a wonderful kind of invitation or a wonderful sort of stepping stone into what these appellations can produce and getting wines from different producers rather than I suppose, well, yeah, doing that and being able to kind of taste the range a little bit.
it can be so daunting. And when I took over from Marcel Alford Williams a couple of years ago, and I looked at the Rhone EP offer, and I did step back. I was like, wow, that's a lot of wines. And how am I gonna know every single wine in a few weeks' time?
Mhm.
But so by doing the mixed cases, we try and find benchmark styles that we think are quite representative of that appellation, um, and of the vintage as well, that have really sort of worked well. So hopefully it's sort of a good introduction to what to expect elsewhere. If you really like that Crozon Hermitage from Chapoutier, do you want to explore more Croz or do you want to explore more Chapoutier? A bit
Mhm.
like that, and also hopefully introduce producers that are lesser well known, I guess, or appellations that don't get as much coverage as the other ones. So
Yeah, that is a perfect opportunity for me to ask one other question that I got. You mentioned there about highlighting producers that perhaps not as well known or appellations. We've discussed a few of those appellations tonight, the likes of Saint-Péray, which perhaps for many isn't a Northern Rhone appellation that we're familiar with or as familiar as we should be. And Ventoux we've discussed and others, but from a producer point of view, I've noticed in this offer there are a few new producers, new to the society producers in there. Quite a nice handful of those with some excellent sounding, excellent looking wines. Perhaps I'm not suggesting tell us lots about everybody that's in there, but maybe sort of one or two of those producers that you've been tasting that you've brought in as these new guys for us. A little bit about them.
yeah, I guess in the offer we try and put like new where it's a new cuvee that we haven't worked with before or for a long time to differentiate, and then obviously the new producers. So from the south, a new Chateauneuf producer, Domaine de Somard, they've only got 2.5 hectares. This is their side hustle. They do actually have a family estate, much bigger that they work on, and this is sort of their love. Really sort of modest estate and really good value. I've tasted their wines for nearly 20 years and just really sort of accessible style. Domaine de Marcoux, Vincent has just sort of taken over from his mum and aunt, biodynamic, organic state. And just it's really exciting, that it's Rhone is quite a traditional region, but there is so much happening. There's a lot of generational shift changes happening, lots of actual new people coming into the region. So Domaine de Crèvecoeur in Ségré, um, uh, a young guy engineer who his mum and dad were artists, and that's why they're from Germany. They moved there because Séguret was voted for a long time the most picturesque village in France, and he sort of fell in love with the culture and started working for Louis Barriol in Saint-Côme and was doing that for many years, and then decided to go out on his own, bought some vineyards, and is doing this project, really working organically, biodynamically, and low yields. A lot of old vines he has. Again, a sort of slightly higher slightly higher altitude, so a cooler expression of that region, which I think is really exciting. And who else do we have that's new? Domaine Cheminot in Van Sobre, again, small family run estate, biodynamic for a long time before it was even trendy. So yeah, we've got quite a few new things. And with that sort of generational shift, we've taken on Jan Charv. They've got some crows, some Hermitage. Again, sort of the youngest, the brother and sister are sort of getting involved. And yeah, it's just really exciting.
Mhm. Sorry, another question has popped up. This is about one of the wines specifically in the booklet. Again, it goes back to Viognier. So Viognier is getting a lot of love. I like this. And and I've not got, I've sort of looked through the list to find exactly where it is, but you'll know the Le Vin de Vienne Viognier,
Sorry there.
the Tabernum, Le Vin de Vienne.
Okay.
Just a little bit about that particular wine. I think in the past we've stocked or we've shown the Condrieu, a few previous En Primeur, but on this particular one, the Tabernum, just what can you tell us about that wine? Essentially, I think is the question.
Is it in the offer in the printed one? I can't see it, but anyway. So Van de Vienne is a great project. It's three sort of real iconic growers. I hate using the word iconic. I think it's overused, but Gaillard, Villard, and Cuiron. They have access to some of the sort of best vineyard sites and connections. So I think they do make a lot of wines, but what they do make is very good quality. And this particular wine, it's just on the border, as I was talking at the start of this. So Seswell, they do hope to become an actual cru. They've been saying this for about 10 years, but I was talking to Stéphane Augier about it in the autumn, and it was getting very, very close. So I guess maybe once it does become cru status, then the pricing will reflect that. So I guess buy now
Yeah,
because you're getting quite a bargain. Uh,
yeah, yeah.
that probably is, yeah, probably will change because Gigondas Blanc got the cru in 23.
Mhm.
And now you have seen sort of price increases as a result of that, which is only natural, really. So yeah, the lowdown cru in 24 again. Overall, you're seeing slight price increases. So these wines that are on the border do offer great value because it's very similar, yeah, climatic conditions and terroir and winemaking if it's top grower.
Yeah, yeah. So yes, get them now before they become full blown AOC.
Yeah,
Um,
exactly.
I mean, you mentioned Lodon as the newer one there, because again, I think that's a region the wines are shown beautifully,
Oh
both by and
yes,
road,
yeah.
and again, terrific. I think
And
terrific
Korak,
value
we've
for
worked with for a number of years, and a lovely family. And the attention to detail there is amazing. From the entry to the more premium cuvées is great. And again, they're right up at altitude, close to a forest, which has a moderating influence as well. So much sort of cooler climate. In that forest, they go hunting for truffles and mushrooms. So depending on the time of year you go, you might be served truffles or mushrooms with lunch, which is rather nice.
nice. I think I just tried to quickly scroll back up, but I think I saw at the beginning that a member is joining us this evening with a 2020 from Korak. So whilst not obviously an old wine by any stretch, but these are wines that can age beautifully over a few years and continue to develop and offer great value and great staying power.
Yeah,
Yeah.
absolutely.
Another question has
2020
just
is
come. Well, go on.
2020 is starting to open up. It's actually more accessible in a way than 2019, which had those really sort of firm tannins. Certain wines from 19 are starting to express themselves, but quite a few are still a bit too tight, a bit too young. So 2020 is really nice.
Yeah, yeah. We've got a question that's just popped through here. You mentioned Jan Schaaf as a sort of one of the new producers, or the new generation, or new producer coming through. Which wines do we have? Is a question on there. That's putting you on the spot, trying to remember exactly which wines.
We've got the
Yeah.
Hermitage 24 in. I think we have the Crows 24, but we have got it as part of our own fine wine takeover as well, the 23s. You can also look for some of their other
Mhm.
cuvées there.
Oh, brilliant. But lots of, so it sounds like a lot of, as you say, new, young, dynamic producers coming in as well. So there's a lot of modern approach as alongside the wonderful sort of traditional characters and traditional wines being made, a nice mix between the two with these new appellations. There's a lot happening, is essentially sort of what I suppose I'm trying to say within the Rhone. There's lots of wine, lots of development, lots of modernizing, lots to be excited about in the Rhone.
Yeah, I think that's really important. I don't think any region can sit still, and
Yeah.
I think also it's really important that there's sort of a real buzz and energy. You can't hide from the fact that it's a difficult market for a lot of these producers. Internationally, everybody is sort of struggling with people, really conscious about how much they're spending, how much they're drinking, which can be a really real big challenge, especially for these southern producers that have sort of slightly elevated alcohols. If people are trying to look at lower alcohol trends, so people have to adapt, which I think a lot of them are doing.
Yeah. Oh, brilliant. As we said, with an offer of about two, or online and in print, offer around 200 wines. There's plenty for everybody. I think there's definitely a wine in there for each and every one of us to enjoy. And thank you for members. If you have any more questions or one's just come through, as I say that, Domaine de Trevalon. Can you talk about Domaine de Trevalon and how it's earned a high status? We're
Oh,
putting
wow.
we're putting you on the spot with some of our questions this evening. Love it.
So I guess technically, it's really funny. Our other buyer, Tim Sykes, he
Mm.
looks after Provence. And we were talking in the office, and he was like, technically, Trevaillon should be Provence. I was like, absolutely not. It's definitely part of the Rhone. It's only 20 minutes drive from Avignon, so I'm keeping it because I definitely don't want to give up this estate. And why do I think that? I just think that the what they're doing is amazing, and they've got horses. They're very into the biodynamics, biodiversity, great terroir, and they're wines that can age. They have great purity, and I think that they have gained an international recognition. Lots of journalists love the wines, and that helps to improve the reputation as well, and get them more well known and more sought after. And I definitely think they're worth the hype. Personally, I think they're they're not too overblown. There's real purity there, along with that sort of structure. So I
Yeah.
think that's how they've earned their high status. Um, Consistently producing great wines
Mhm,
that
mhm.
have drinkability and ageability, which is not easy.
No, excellent. We've also, yes, I was right. The Cloric 2020, great now, showing no sign of age. So brilliant, wonderful wines as we've discussed there. Members do keep sending a few more questions in for Fiona, but Fiona, whilst we're
I just actually thought, you were talking about Saint-Péray, and I was like, oh, I need to mention that because Saint-Péray was a region traditionally known for making sparkling wines
Mhm.
because of its cool climate. And Domaine Vosges, who we work with there, we have on our list their sparkling, which is absolutely delicious. And it's great that some of these producers haven't stopped producing sparkling and are continuing with that because some of them are delicious.
Yeah, yeah. Very much. We've got a question here, and I think I almost touched on it when we are looking at the map of the Southern Rhone, but none, I believe, in the offer here. But what are your views on Tavel, on the rosés of Tavel?
I think there can be some really good Tavel, and we work with Domaine Mabby, who produces a more sort of um, easygoing sort of summer style, and then the more longer lived versions. I think they're wines that go with food perfectly. And I think I'd much prefer overall drinking a Tavel than a lot of these Côte de Provence wines that are quite dilute and very expensive. So I think in that sense, when I was talking earlier about Rhône offering great value, Tavel is a good example of that.
Yeah. And I think with Tavel as well, for members perhaps sort of not familiar with Tavel, the wines themselves are always rosé, but they're very deep in
Dark,
colour.
yes.
They're
So you
very
don't get
dark colour, which historically we would associate with a sweeter rosé, but of course they're not
no, they're
at all.
dry.
They
Yeah,
are
they're
dry. So
dry.
don't be sort of put off by that if you're a fan of dry rosé. The colour isn't representative of the sweetness level. It is a dry wine, but as you say, I think very food friendly. They're quite powerful. They can be really intensely flavored, beautiful wines with great structure. And yeah, wonderful, wonderful with a bit of food. I like mine with tuna. It's a kind of classic
Yeah.
pairing. But
Well, it's interesting, isn't it? Because a lot of people are moving towards chilled reds,
mhm,
um, and Tavel's a perfect sort of in between of that,
yeah,
between a white and a red. Should appeal to those. Oh, I love that. We love Mabi Tavel with strawberry ice cream in the summer. Nice.
yeah. That's I'm going to write that one down. That's two references today to eating strawberries with some wine. So I'm definitely going to get some pints of strawberries in. Another question that's also just come through. So you mentioned White Hermitage as a kind of standout in terms of the on the more premium, I suppose, end of the scale, the higher value wines. But are there any others standouts within that field, reds and whites, that you would say within the offer? These are absolute musts.
Um, yes, absolutely. And Red Hermitage, I think, has done
Mm,
really well. I think a producer that has done amazingly in 24 is Chapoutier. And they've got a lot of wines from various different price points that you can look to. I said, Gigondas, and I've introduced the Gigondas Tradition from Moulin de la Gardette. We usually just do in the offer the Ventabrin, which is the older vineyard parcels. So that's at 89 a six, which I think is amazing value. Moulin de la Gardette don't get enough attention. They're a lovely family, quite reserved, and don't shout about how good they are and how good the terroir is. And Zoe Meunier has just come on board, and yeah, this new generation coming in there. And when I say just come on board, like her father is very much leaving her to her own devices because he went off motorbike cycling with his youngest son in Pakistan most recently. So he obviously has a lot of trust in her, which is nice. From the north, Crozes Hermitage Blanc from Domaine Rousset. I think that is a stunner. Rousset, even his red, there's steep slopes, old vines, so not your sort of bog standard crows. And yeah, really, really nice this year. Anyone else? I think the Condria from André Perret was showing very well. And again, sort of really good quality estate with good fruit, old vines, and the resulting wine is rather good.
mhm. So you mentioned Condria there, and we've got a not as much a question, I suppose, but from one member here saying they're used to looking for Viognier, when they're looking for wines. Obviously, a fan of Viognier there, but didn't realize it was sort of the same or the similar. That Condria is Viognier. It's sort of named after the appellation, but it is 100% Viognier.
Yes,
Yeah.
yeah, and
Typically,
often
they're more kind of oak aged, not
yeah,
always, but they
yeah. So
tend to be
most
that
most
color.
oak aged. some with more new French oak than others, so get more sort of that sort of vanilla and creaminess. One producer that doesn't use any oak is Rostang. So if you like Viognier but not that oak style, then I would suggest Rostang would be a good alternative to that.
Amazing. Perfect. No, thank you very much. Members, thank you for all of your questions as well, and all of your comments there. Strawberry ice cream, Tavel, the 2020 Curac, and everything else in between.
Oh, sorry.
Um,
Someone says, "What do you mean, crows? Crows Hermitage."
oh, sorry,
For
yes.
that question. Sorry, I was abbreviating.
No, it's been wonderful. It's been wonderful to chat Rhône with you several times this week, Fiona. So thank you very, very much for your time, not just tonight, but for the whole week. A fantastic offer there, a wonderful vintage. Members do, if you haven't had it already, but this should be dropping very, very soon to you. Have a thumb through it. It's on the website as well. I'll send a link in an email tomorrow. But do have a look through that. Any questions, do fire them across to us and we'll do our best to answer. But Fiona, members, have a great rest of the evening, great rest of the week. And we'll see you all again at the next event. All right.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you.